We're going to have another stakeout after lunch. I've got to go open the Senate, but I will take a couple quick ones.
What does it say about America that heads of state from around the world have congratulated President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris, and Republican leadership has still neglected to do so? Are you all afraid of President Trump?
Well, what it says about America is that until the Electoral College votes, anyone who's running for office can exhaust concerns about counting in any court of appropriate jurisdiction. That's not unusual. It should not be alarming. At some point here, we'll find out finally who was certified in each of these states, and the Electoral College will determine the winner, and that person will be sworn in on January 20th. No reason for alarm. I don't think anything that's occurred so far interrupts an ordinary process of moving through the various steps that I indicated and allowing, if there is a new administration, it to work through the transition. All of these steps will be taken at the appropriate time. All of these steps will be taken at the appropriate time. Now, I'm going to go over and open the Senate. We have another stakeout after lunch, and I'll be happy to take your questions then.
I was pleased to be elected policy chairman again. What we saw in this last campaign was that candidates really matter, but what you're for also really matters. I think that's one of the reasons that virtually every predictor of what was going to happen in the elections was wrong. You know, the president wasn't defeated by huge numbers. In fact, he may not have been defeated at all. We gained seats in the House. We are going to hold the majority in the Senate. Hispanic Americans voted for Republicans in ways that they have not ever done before. African American women, young African American men below, say, 35, high percentages of them, way beyond expectations, voted for our candidates, voted for the president. I think if you're a Republican in the Senate today, if you're a Republican in the Congress today, there are incredible opportunities out there as we look at what voters said they didn't want, but also what voters clearly said they do want. They want more opportunity. They want more fairness. They want a strong economy. They don't want the regulators to regulate us out of business. We want every regulation we need and not a single regulation we don't need. They'd like to see what happened in the first 3 years of the Trump administration continue to happen. That's a message that we all need to pay close attention to. High employment numbers, low unemployment numbers among every group in America, and voters defied every predictor when they came to the polling place and said, this is what we want to see more of.
Senator, have you congratulated President-elect Biden yet?
Well, first off, we need to finish all the votes. All the votes need to be counted. I mean, not votes, but we need to have all the votes counted. So I look forward to that being finished.
But the race was closer in 2016, and Republicans congratulated President Trump then.
Well, I can tell you that there's still a lot of challenges out there still. So I think we need to get all the votes.
And is there any evidence of fraud that you've seen?
About one.
Okay, great. Have you spoken to President-elect Biden yet and congratulated him?
I have not.
Why not?
Well, first of all, to begin with, I will just simply share with you, it's not through any ill will. It is simply a fact that, number one, most of us do not have a direct contact with Mr. Biden. And second of all, right now, we are still awaiting, and we still expect that President Trump will continue, as long as he believes there's a problem with the election, to follow his legal recourse, which he has every right to do and which he owes his followers. But in the meantime, most of us have been focusing on Georgia, and right now we absolutely have to have Georgia in our win column if we want to continue to maintain some sense of balance within and a stopgap for the American people that may have real concerns about a very radical and left-leaning agenda.
Are you worried that by not acknowledging President-elect Biden's win, that you might be fueling conspiracy theorists out there who think this election was somehow rigged?
No. What we're doing is following exactly what the founding fathers here wanted us to do, which is to follow the rule of law. Look, these things do take time. The founding fathers recognized that in the first place. We'll continue to follow the law, and I think that we will be the adults in the room, but we're going to allow the president the right that he has to follow through with the courts and to make sure that he has been protected by the law and that he has every opportunity to share with his followers that he believes in the outcome. Give him time to be able to do that one way or the other.
Even if it means holding up the transition?
Well, with regard to the transition itself, I think they should be able to work out an issue between them to allow certain parts of it to move forward. I'm not going to second guess them in terms of what they're doing right now, but most certainly I think things will change over the next few days.
Have you seen
That's
any
my hope.
evidence of fraud yet?
Me, I have not been following that, but I will tell you that most certainly there have been accusations. The president has the opportunity to share evidence of that, and we'll wait for his outcome. But look, this is a case of where if he wants to make the accusation, he should then present and show us the evidence. He has time to do that. The courts will follow that through. The courts will make the decision. We'll move forward, just as the founding fathers expected it to be done in the first place.
But if the accusation is baseless, do you as an elected official have a responsibility to say so?
The courts have the responsibility to make that determination. We will allow the courts to do their work.
Senator Rounds,
Yeah.
on the transition you mentioned, do you think that GSA should release the funding and, give the stamp of approval for the transition to move forward at this point?
We learned last night that this was the case. Most certainly, I'm not going to second guess them right now, but it is something that we'll look at, and it's not a call that any one of us as an individual makes. But most certainly, I think there's a transition plan that's been followed in the past. In this particular case, she's indicated that once there is an outcome on the election, she'll move forward with it. I understand her concern, but that's not up for us to make that call.
Senator Rounds, with the vaccine news that came out, do you see a bigger COVID package coming out or a smaller one? How do you see it?
Good question. Right now, look, what we really want is a package which is an appropriation and not one that establishes new policy. And we'll find out whether or not the Speaker has an interest in actually pursuing something based upon whether or not she's looking more at making policy changes or if she's interested in items that are specifically trying to address the pandemic itself. I think Republicans, once again, are in favor of additional help through the PPP program. I think we're also very interested in finding a path forward with regard to unemployment. Most certainly we want to help individuals regarding the hospitals and the cost for them, the cost for schools and so forth. We're very interested in all of that. What we don't want to do is to make new public policy regarding additional funds for federal funding of abortion, which is something that the Speaker has continued to push within this. And once she makes those changes and she comes back to an appropriations process, I think the negotiations will move much quicker.
What can
Thanks.
the Senate get done if there is a Democratic president and a Republican Senate?
I think the American people recognize that there are a number of very radical issues that were suggested by the Democrat Party during this last election cycle. People in the upper Midwest, people in South Dakota can't live with the new waters of the U.S. The Green New Deal simply would be a disaster. The Senate is that stopgap that says this has got to be something that can stand the test of time. Republicans and Democrats can work together in a bipartisan basis, but it will take everybody to give a little bit, but it also means that those radical items that were on their agenda have to be stopped. Unless we win Georgia and we control the United States Senate, there is no stopgap to protect the American public against those radical ideas. And if President Biden is, or if it is a President Biden, then he'll have a real mess on his hands if he's got to deal with the far left that says there's no reason for him not to move forward. I better go. I better roll.
Hi.
Is the State Department currently preparing to engage with the Biden transition team? And if not, at what point does a delay hamper a smooth transition or pose a risk to national security?
There will be a smooth transition to a second Trump administration. All right? We're ready. The world is watching what's taking place here. We're going to count all the votes. When the process is complete, there'll be electors selected. There's a process. The Constitution lays it out pretty clearly. The world should have every confidence that the transition necessary to make sure that the State Department is functional today, successful today, and successful with the president who's in office on January 20th, a minute afternoon, will also be successful. I went through a transition on the front, and I've been on the other side of this. I'm very confident that we will do all the things that are necessary to make sure that the government, the United States government, will continue to perform its national security function as we go forward.
So you believe there's widespread voter fraud, that the reports that we're getting from Pennsylvania, from Michigan, showing vote totals in massive leads or significant leads with 99% reporting are going to be overturned, and that the United States failed to conduct a fraudulent free election?
Rich, I'm the Secretary of State. I'm getting calls from all across the world. These people are watching our election. They understand that we have a legal process. They understand that this takes time. Right? It took us 37 plus days in an election back in 2000. We conducted a successful transition then. I'm very confident that we will count, and we must count every legal vote. We must make sure that any vote that wasn't lawful ought not be counted. That dilutes your vote if it's done improperly. Got to get that right. When we get it right, we'll get it right. We're in good shape.
Should foreign leaders not be calling
We're in good shape.
President-elect Biden?
Who was next?
Yeah.
I want to ask you,
I can barely hear you, ma'am. I'm sorry.
yeah, Heba Nasser, Al-Sharq News. I want to ask about the sanctions against Gibran Bassil in Lebanon. We know that, we heard that this was on the making for some time, but I want to ask about the timing. Are you, were you doing this to make a new stage for the new administration? And also I want to ask about the arms sale to UAE. When we expect that to be delivered?
So the second question was about the arms sales to the United Arab Emirates. So we'll have significant announcements with respect to that here very, very soon. We continue to review arms sales all across the world, including to our important friend and partner in the United Arab Emirates. We're confident we will be able to provide them weapon systems that will ensure their security and do the work that we all need to do collectively to counter the threat from the Islamic Republic of Iran. Did you ask about Iranian sanctions earlier and the impact of those?
No, the sanctions against Gibran Bassil in Lebanon. Are you setting
Yes.
a new stage for the new administration? I want to ask about the timing, that's it.
Yeah. So I'll answer that question more broadly. No, the sanctions we put in place are because they're right and proper and will deliver good outcomes for the people in the country in which we sanction their leaders who are corrupt. That certainly holds true for Gibran Bassil. Right? This was someone who was deeply connected to a foreign terrorist organization, Hezbollah. We've now sanctioned him. The Lebanese people don't want to have anything to do with that. They want an independent nation. They want a sovereign country. They don't want the political elites that have been corrupted through the system that was put in place and permitted them to loot and rob their country. They want freedom. They want prosperity. They want jobs. Those are the things we want. The sanctions that we put in place against the former minister are appropriate and useful towards getting us closer to that one day where the Lebanese people can have what it is they so richly deserve.
Are we expecting a new sanctions?
Christina?
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Hi, Christina.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Good, good. Is there any evidence that the CCP has interfered in the recent election or is trying to sow chaos in the aftermath of the legal challenges?
Was the question about Russia?
I'm sorry, CCP or any
Yeah,
foreign-
any foreign interference.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna leave that question to the Department of Homeland Security and to the Justice Department, the folks who deal with that. But as I think we all said prior to the election, we did an enormous amount of work to reduce the risk that they would have the capacity to have a significant capability to interfere in the elections themselves. And I'll leave the details of what they have determined so far about that for them to announce. Go ahead, I'll take one more.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, Secretary. You said when the process is completed. So when are you?
Yeah, this is the third question. Just, ma'am, if you would. I came out here today and talked about important foreign policy issues. This is now the
Sir,
third
this is
question.
the most important thing that's happening in this country right now. I'm wondering
Yes,
what kind
ma'am.
of
Go ahead and
guidance-
ask your question. I'll give my answer.
What kind of guidance are you giving to American diplomats on how to characterize the results of the presidential election? And also, this department frequently sends out statements encouraging free and fair elections abroad.
Yes.
And for the losers of those elections to accept the results, doesn't President Trump's refusal to concede discredit those efforts?
That's ridiculous. And you know it's ridiculous. And you asked it because it's ridiculous. Look, you asked the question, yes, ma'am. You asked the question, if you will permit me to answer it. You asked a question that is ridiculous. This department cares deeply to make sure that elections around the world are safe and secure and free and fair. And my officers risk their lives to ensure that that happens. They work diligently on that. We often encounter situations where it's not clear about a particular election. We work to uncover facts. We work to do discovery to learn whether, in fact, the outcome, the decision that was made reflected the will of the people. That's our responsibility. It's what we try to do along with partners all across the world, along with OSCE inspectors, to make sure that those elections were free and fair. We want every one of those votes to be counted in the same way that we have every expectation that every vote here in the United States will be counted too. It is totally appropriate. The United States has an election system that is laid out deeply in our Constitution, and we're going to make sure that we get that right. And we have, all of you have, and should be committed to making sure that that happens. I think every one of you wants that same outcome. You want every vote to be counted. You want to run the process. We want the law to be imposed in a way that reflects the reality of what took place. And that's what I think we're engaged in here in the United States, and is what we work on every place all across the world. Thank you all.
How are you advising diplomats overseas to refer to President-elect Joe Biden? Have you given State Department any guidance?
Senator, have you congratulated Vice President Biden yet?
No.
Why not?
Congratulated about.
Senator Murkowski?